All right, hello and welcome. I'm doing a product walkthrough for error tracking, which is within the monitoring stage of GitLab's products. My name is Kenny Johnston. I'm the director of product covering our ops products, which is both the configure and monitor stages. I'm going to share my screen. That's the right one. Okay, so this is the issue, just an overview. Error tracking is important because it allows you to link the kind of real user experience that might be generating the errors to your development process as well as your operations. So a big primary use case for this is while a developer is working on an application or an update to an application, they might want to mess around with it in their local development environment and get a whole bunch of useful information about any errors that might occur so that they can fix them before pushing it to production. As well as there's another use case where in production, you would want to see kind of like the frequency of various errors so that you can do correlation and then respond to those so that if there is a common error that is occurring, that you can fix it in your code in the future. So my expectations in going through this walkthrough is that I will be able to start with a fresh application. I'm going to use one of our auto DevOps enabled templates. Plumb it for Sentry, configure Sentry in the GitLab application, and then start seeing errors in GitLab itself. So with that, I will get started. Let me keep my notes over here. This was just the tracking issue. I'm going to start with, this is a group that I have an attached cluster to. I actually just attached it, so hopefully I won't run into too many issues with the with using a Kubernetes cluster to start a new project, but I am going to go ahead and create a new project. I had one previously for this OP test that I'd done for a previous walkthrough, but I've already plumbed it for Sentry separately, so I want to go through the process of doing it from scratch here. So I'm going to create it from a template. I'm going to use Node.js template. We're going to call this Sentry test project. And the description, we'll make it public. Okay, let's create the project. Now, one thing I think I need to do is to go back to the, I don't think I set up this endpoint. I had just pushed provision ingress. Let me make sure I do this. So I want to give it a base domain, noip.io. Okay, now I think when I run auto DevOps on this new project, it says, hey, I could add a cluster or I could enable auto DevOps. I have a Kubernetes cluster. Let's just make sure it shows up here. Operations Kubernetes. It says I got the group cluster available, so that's good. So I think in that case, I should just be able to click enable auto DevOps for this project. I did that. Let's see if that has some pipelines running. Renewed auto DevOps has been created. Go to the pipeline pages. Cool. So there is a pipeline running to deploy to my Kubernetes, my group level Kubernetes cluster. That's great. Next thing I want to do is adjust the application for Sentry. And before I do that, I need to create a Sentry project, but I'm doing a little bit of this blind. So let's look for some docs. Sentry and GitLab. Error tracking, that's probably where I want to be. Okay, error tracking allows developers to easily discover and view errors in their application may be generating. This helps them develop more efficiently. It's great. We're going to use Sentry. That's cool. There's a way to deploy Sentry. I can use the hosted version. I'm going to do that. Okay, so enabling Sentry. Here I am. Sign up for Sentry. So I will sign up, but I already have an account. Let's go to Sentry. Okay, so this is a project that I already have, but I have some other projects. This one is one that I mentioned I'd already plumbed. This is a separate personal project. So let's add a new project here. Okay, I'm on Sentry. Is that what it's telling me to do? Navigate to your projects. Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't really tell me that I need to create a new Sentry project for this for my individual GitLab projects. I can probably just also reuse the existing one, but I'm going to make a little note. Okay. In Sentry, I created a new project. I'm going to call this project Sentry Test. It's on my team. And then I mentioned that it is using, project is using Node.js. So let's create that project. Cool. If I'm using npm as a package dependency, I should do that. Okay. Actually, I'm going to stop sharing just that window and share my whole screen so I can pull up a IDE. Okay. And I'll get my terminal. Workspace I have is for our GitLab website. So I'm going to go clone this project so I can make some edits to it. Okay. Oops. I thought I went into projects, but I didn't. Let's do it there. Okay. Okay, in Sentry tests now, let's go back over here. I'm gonna open that on my workspace. New window, close that one. I'm gonna add some folders to this workspace, and that is going to be the Sentry test folder. Okay, and then I'll save this. Up one. Okay, all right, now I'm set up. So one thing it was telling me to do was do an npm install. Okay, that happened. And I've got some changes. So that first commit is add Sentry package. Okay. And I'm just committing the master here. I'm not going to do merge requests. So I'll push that. The next thing it says, I need to inform Sentry Node SDK about my DSN. Okay, and this DSN is a unique code for sending specific information to my Sentry project. So I'll do that here. In routes, I'll use this user one. So the way that this project is set up is that there's a index file which will show you, just kind of like a hello world. It will have a welcome, and then if you go to /users, it will give you something else. And I want to say if you go to /users, it's going to have generate a Sentry error. And then I know from a previous example that the language so Sentry says I can just call it an undefined function, but I realized that there's an issue in the Sentry docs, or at least I couldn't figure out how to actually make this execute, and that what I really needed was something like this line that I will show you. So I'm going to send this respond with resources, but in order to capture something, I need a specific Sentry command, so I'm going to use this one. So that is a test, and I'm going to save that. And then I am actually going to do and start this locally. Okay, So that is my site running locally. And what should happen if I go to this user thing is that it generates a new error in my Sentry project, and at least Sentry will work. Was user or users? Users. Okay, so it said respond with resource. That should have flagged Sentry, and cool. Yeah, just a few seconds ago, I created this one. And does it tell me? So that shows that I've got stuff responding to Sentry from my project. Now I want to check that in and have it deployed to production, and then we'll see if the production one is generating errors to Sentry as well. Okay, cool. So 2 commits later, one got me the Sentry packages, and the second one added this line to capture something. It's capturing locally, and I validated that in Sentry. So it's sending out appropriately. Now the question is, I would like to see if this is, if I can start capturing these from a deployed application in GitLab. Okay, so this is where I was. Let's look at this. I've got some pipelines running. I got 3 pipelines running. I'm gonna look at this one. It's the latest one that is also about deploying that to production. I was just gonna cheat a little bit for time-wise and cancel out. I know these jobs in the test section, I can run without, or sorry, they'll still forward even if these jobs fail, so they're not required. So I'm just gonna cancel them for speed purposes. While that is happening, let's look at some of those previous pipelines. So this one has deployed to production, so I should be able to see in my environments a new environment, and I want to look at what this looks like live. Okay, so there's my welcome to Express live public published by Auto DevOps. So I'll wait for the other 2 pipelines to finish running, and then hopefully if I end up going to, let's just confirm this, if I go here, it's going to give me that response, but I should not be seeing any new errors generated in Sentry, which I don't. Only one event has gone into that one. But when this pipeline finishes, I should, when I hit that same URL, generate a new error in Sentry. Okay, let's go back. So this was about getting Sentry set up. It said, deploy Sentry, plummet to your application. That's what I've just done. Now here's the instructions for connecting Sentry to GitLab. So while I'm waiting for that deployment, I guess I can go ahead and get this auth token and plug it into my GitLab instance or project so that GitLab will be aware of or at least present to me the errors that were found by Sentry. So I'll get going with that. Let me read the instructions carefully. Find or generate a Sentry auth token, and then navigate to your settings and operations. Okay, so here I'm in Sentry. Let's figure out how I get an auth token. The link here gave me something to go to. Find or generate authentication tokens. You can find or create authentication tokens within Sentry. Cool. Okay, here I am. I have a token. I'm just going to use that one. I'll have to reset that. Okay, so now it says navigate to my project's settings operations. Okay, so Sentry test. Let's go to settings, operations. And then once I get there, ensure that the active checkbox is set. In the Sentry API URL, enter the Sentry hostname, auth token, click connect, select the project. Okay, I think I can do that. Error tracking, set it to active. This is one minor thing. It might be useful since I imagine a lot of our users will be using Sentry.io to just remind them of that URL. Call that. Okay. I added that and then I hit connect. Didn't really say anything about hit connect, just, oh, it does. Click connect, test the connection, and populate the project dropdown, which it did. Cool. In the project dropdown, select the one I want to use. So that was this one, Sentry test, and then hit save changes. All right. Then what did it tell me? I think I was done after that. Save changes. Now you can visit operations error tracking to see a list of Sentry errors. Cool. Let's try that. Operations error tracking. Spinner. Okay, there's my one with one event that happened 5 minutes ago. So cool. Sentry, I can see my Sentry errors right here in GitLab. That's pretty cool. And there's a little pop out to go see it in Sentry itself. Awesome. Let's check in on that pipeline and make sure it's sending ones to production. Okay, so this is now deployed, production passed. So this should be our newest, our newer instance. And so now let's see if I hit that public endpoint. Huh. That is interesting. Maybe it's still deploying. Oh, is that a different? No, it should not be. What did I do wrong here? Ah, interesting. Maybe I was typing that wrong. Okay, so now I hit that and I should see new errors in Sentry. I did not. 7 minutes old, nothing new. All right, let's take a look. So number of events, still just that one from 8 minutes ago. So that did not actually push an error. Oh, is that true? Let's make sure. I was maybe on the wrong pipeline. Maybe this one just passed. I should have done something to make sure I knew which version of the application was presently deployed. Let's do this. Let's get back to this page from the environment specifically. So this says third deployment deployed 2 minutes ago. Let's look at the environment. Okay. That should be generating an error. And it's not. Got this 9-minute-old one, but nothing new. Let's do this. Let's check what master looks like. Yeah. Should have captured something. Let's try this again on my local machine. Huh. Merged fingerprints. Oh, here's some new ones from my local machine over the last 30 seconds. So the local machine is sending them, but my production instance is not. Let's do this. That updated. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not sending. Let's go back to our projects. These are not the ones coming from this environment. Interesting. So we did set it up. We are getting the errors only from the dev environment. We're not seeing those same errors generated from production. Unless they're being blocked somewhere. Just to confirm. Okay, so that will at least help me ensure that what I see in the production environment, or at least, yeah, in this production environment is the most up-to-date application code. Just give this a second to run. I keep investigating. Been a fifth one there. Let's go look at pod logs here. See if they generate anything. No, nothing generated. I hit that. I'm gonna cheat real quick and see how I had this set up on my other project. If I did anything special, don't believe so. Look over here. This was my other ops test project that had an error. And you know what? I don't think it has a Kubernetes cluster, so it might not even have a live environment at the moment. Yeah, it does not. So this is deploying now. Mid deployment. Okay. Back up. All right, so that is the new code for sure. Does not appear to be adding events though. Well, no, it did. Okay, so now it is. I don't know why that took the time that it took, but let's go back to the details. It still says 7 events, but it has a lot more than 7. Those were just generated. And the only one I'm touching is not my local environment, but this public one. I'll have to investigate why that did not deploy at first. I probably should do something to make the errors more descriptive and have it, at least in Sentry, show me which environment they are associated with. But yeah, here's the recent ones I just got. So it is generating events, 31 events. Not sure what took that time, but let's go back to these errors. I can now see unique errors in Sentry. Probably good for demo purposes to show a couple different types of errors in different environments, both in Sentry and in GitLab. Probably good for next iteration on the walkthrough. But, all right, despite the trouble to get that specific thing deployed and generating errors from our production environment, Sentry connection, easy to plumb your application with Sentry, generally speaking. Even easier to have this single pane of glass view into your Sentry errors from GitLab, which I know we will be working on improving. Documentation was fairly straightforward and easy to follow. So yeah, all in all, I think a success. Some follow-up for what might have been happening that took it so long to start pushing the errors from the production application. But with that, I will close this out. Thanks, everybody.